Hey everybody, and welcome to our latest lesson from Garris Math. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about all about lines in standard form. We're going to graph lines in standard form, and we'll also convert lines to standard form. So let's get right to it. Standard form of a line is a line in the equation ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are all integers. It's important to realize that a, b, and c are all integers. We won't have any fractional numbers in front of the variables. When a line is in standard form, it's easiest to graph if we find the x and the y intercepts. So let's first start by talking about the intercepts. If I look at the coordinate plane off to the right here, and I look at the line passing through both the x and the y axis, the y-intercept is where the point crosses the y-axis, and the x-intercept is the point where the line crosses the x-axis. It's also important to notice that at the y-intercept, the x-coordinate of that point is 0. And at the x-intercept, the y-coordinate of that point is 0. We can use this fact to find the x and the y-intercepts. So, to do so, if I wanted to find the y-intercept, I would plug in 0 for x. So let's try it. 3 times 0 plus 4y equals 24. 3 times 0 is 0, so I'm now left with 4y equals 24. And to find y, I divide both sides by 4. So y equals 6. This means that my y-intercept is the point over 0 up 6. Now, let's try it the other way around. If I want to find the x-intercept, I'll plug in 0 for y. So 3x plus 4 times 0 equals 24. 4 times 0 is 0, so 3x equals 24. I divide both sides by 3, and x equals 8. So our x-intercept now is the point 8, 0. Now let's put our knowledge of x and y intercepts to use to graph a line in standard form. It says, what is the graph of the line x minus 2y equals negative 2? I'm going to find the x and the y intercepts. It's easy if I create a table, x and y, and I'm going to plug in 0 for x to find that y-intercept, and I'm going to plug in 0 for y to find the x-intercept. So let's go ahead and do it. If I plug in 0 for x, I'm left with negative 2y equals negative 2. If I divide both sides by negative 2, y now equals 1. Now I flip it around. If I plug in 0 for y, I'm left with x equals negative 2. No further work needs to be done because I know x equals negative 2. Alright, now I'll move over to the graph and I'll plot my points. The first point is the point 0, 1. So over 0, up 1. I'll then plot the x-intercept. That's over negative 2, up 0. I've got 2 points, so that's now enough to make the equation of a line. To draw in my line. There you have it. We did all that simply by finding the x and the y intercepts. Alright, example number 3. These equations look a little bit different because they've only got an x equals or a y equals. In part A, I see that x equals 3. This tells me that the x-coordinate of every point on that line will be 3. So if I move over to x equals 3, 1, 2, 3, and put a point, and then I move up and put a point, and I keep putting points everywhere where I find x equals 3, I find that I eventually get a vertical line. So any equation of a line that starts with x equals will be a vertical line. Now, in part B, if I have an equation that's y equals 3, that means that every point on that line will have the y-coordinate of 3. So I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to put a point so that every point has a y-coordinate of 3. What we'll see is that I create a horizontal line. So, if I have an equation of y equals a constant, it ends up being a horizontal line. So, we can summarize by saying x equals, this is a vertical line, and y equals is a horizontal line. There you have it. Let's flip to the back. We'll do one more example and then it'll be your turn. What is y equals negative 3/7 x plus 5 written in standard form using integers? So, since standard form is all with integers, we need to get rid of the fraction. The easiest way to get rid of this fraction would be to multiply each term by the common denominator. Since we only have one denominator in this equation, my common denominator is 7. So I'm going to multiply my whole equation by 7. Here's how it'll look. 7y equals, now 7 times 3 is 21, divided by 7 is 3, so that's negative 3x, plus 7 times 5 is 35. Now remember, standard form of a line has x and y on the same side, so I need to move x over to be with the y. I'll add 3x to both sides, and I end up with 3x plus 7y equals 35. There is my new equation of my line in standard form. Alright, it's time for the self-quiz. Try the next questions and then check your answers. Alright, what are the x and the y-intercepts? You should have plugged in 0 for x to find y, and plugged in 0 for y to find x. If I plug in 0 for x, I'm left with 7y equals 14, so y equals 2. And if I plug in 0 for y, I'm left with negative 2x equals 14, so x equals negative 7. Alright, in question number 2, you had to do some graphing. So again, we're going to find those x and y intercepts. If I plug in 0 for x, I get negative 3y equals 15, so y equals negative 5. And if I plug in 0 for y, I get 4x equals 15. If I divide both sides by 4, x equals 15 over 4, which is about, let's say, 3 3/4. Now I move over to my graph. I'm going to go over 0 up negative 5, down negative 5 rather, and then I'm going to go over 3 1/4 up 0. So I'm going to go just close to 4. So 1, 2, 3, and then almost to 4. I'll put that point. And now I'll connect with my line. Question number 3, what is the graph of x equals negative 2? We know that x equals will be a vertical line, and they're all going to be through the point negative 2, so right there you have it. And last but not least, you had to convert to standard form. So to get rid of that fraction, we're going to multiply through by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything by 8. So I get 8y equals negative 3x plus 16. I'll then add 3x to both sides. So 3x plus 8y equals 16. There you have it, folks. Hope you learned a whole lot today. Come to class tomorrow ready to ask some questions.